Scintillation about what goes on about decolonizing the university. I described much expectation on the fact that she is steeped in the tradition of decoloniality. But what I found in the text was much more traumatizing in the sense that it weighed more on the side of experience than it did on theory. That does not take much away from the book. If anything, it actually counts in favor of it because this is not just about theoretical debates between Minolo and Webudreno Santos in Southline. In many ways, as I pointed out at the very outset, it is a book that was traumatizing at the same time. Because it forces me as a reader, as a black academic also, to have that moment of reckoning with the here and now of what it means to be black in higher education in South Africa today. And these are not unique questions in the diaspora as well. The UK, Canada, the US, you find that we're in the same space, but with different intensities, as it were. And I venture to just make a few remarks that I jotted down as I was reading. That yes, the book is a timely production now, much needed because there is a gaping hiatus in education. There's a refusal to acknowledge this big elephant in the room, that there is actually racism. And in other words, there is an affirmation of the major signifier of oligarchies that are parading as publishers, such as Taylor and Francis and others that are listed, owned by Reuters, so that we are put into the burden of producing knowledge, which is often times ignored, hardly cited, even though it is quite significant, as long as we affirm the benchmark of external excellence, which speaks to spaces that are already owned by whiteness. Let me shock you a bit. In South Africa, for example, we often want to hunt our publications on the card of internationalized excellence. But we never want to acknowledge in the same breath that there is a South African network of skills abroad, which is constituted by mainly white expatriates who are going to be your referees as you submit your articles. They're the experts in South Africa. And you know the result. You're going to be rejected or else they're going to temper the direction of your article so that it says what they want it to mean. So it is a welcome paradox. And in so many ways, it is a culmination of Ralph Ellison's very famous book, The Invisible Man, who decried the denied visibility of blacks in society. And I want to quote him as he says, and I think that's the general mood of the text, I'm invisible, understand, simply because people refuse to see me. Like the bodiless heads you see sometimes in circus sideshows, it's as though I've been surrounded by mirrors of hard, distorting glass. When they approach me, they see only my surroundings, themselves, or figments of their imagination. Indeed, everything and everything except me. When you walk in the corridors of Brits, UCT, and UK, sometimes in conferences where you're paying hefty amounts of money as a subscriber to the conference, as a delegate, you'll also be made to feel invisible. Sometimes when you are being made visible, this for the wrong reasons, that you are too radical, that you are angry, that you are actually bucking the trend. Sometimes you'll be celebrated if you are echoing a lot of their scholarship without questioning. So there is a space in which the book is actually merging. This is the harsh reality that all the contributors to this magnum opus highlight. On page 161, for example, the chapter by Dr. Phaswana draws from bell hooks, who came to theory when she was desperate and hurt. It offers a critique of the westernized university. Hugo Canham, I believe is here, writing on the prolonging of the body, refers to Fanon, who was seen as a threatening black man. And all of the scholars, in more occasions than not, also refer to the idea of belonging, such as was articulated by Lira Eval Davis, on belonging in a particular form of power relations. It is not just about difference, it's about relational difference. It speaks to relations of power, that you are the one who is the object, and the other is the subject, and they're the constituting subject. And the university works in a particular way, especially as you will all know, that I will challenge each and every one of you to show me a black South African academic in the social sciences who's A-rated. There's none. Not because intelligence has a relational value with the hue of your skin, or that your anatomy is different, but it is more because of the fact that the structures of power and the way in which excellence is structured reifies the structures of white privilege. Who reviews you, who processes, endorses the correct reviewer. What if a reviewer was working lyrical about the path-breaking nature of your work and they said, no, that is too much? Don't reject it, because you're not sitting on those papers. They are the endorsers, they are the gatekeepers, and also they're the ones that shape black experience in paper and materially as well. Ideologically, we endorse it by craving acceptance. One of the contributing authors decried the fact of black academics not showing enough gratitude because we've been allowed space in the university. It is a privilege that we always have to be grateful for. Time and time again, you're reminded when you speak transformation that, in fact, you should be grateful because somebody else does not have the job that you have. Somebody else was not fast-tracked to get the scholarship that you had, to study overseas, to be immersed, to be re-employed and brought into academic circulation. It's a privilege for which you should be grateful for, but actually that is a fallacy in this country. If you think about the way in which the University of Witwatersrand was founded as a mining school, mining whose bedrock was black labor, cheapened black labor, the product of which you alienated from the workers, and that led to Johannesburg Exchange standing because of cheap black labor. And that's where the profits come from, the gold exported to Mother Emperor, somewhere in England. But the truth of the matter is that no one is doing us favors. But anyway, the scars are there, the trauma is there. The illusion has been formed that we are somehow, shall I prefer to say, stepchildren, adopted into this family as being generous, but so touchy about us being here, and for us claiming what is rightfully ours. And so it is recorded in 2 or 3 more chapters that we find that an academic has to be muted on the strength of that imperative of being grateful. At the same time, we are muted also not in terms of you not being silent, but also not citing the sources that you want to cite. Often they'll be rejected in an article. Your article faces serious risk of rejection because you cited a scholar of whom they do not approve. That is another form of muting. Dr. Phaswana earlier once spoke of Walter Mignolo, but I want us to revisit that position because he made a salient point, often that there's a time when we have to de-link from the logic of westernized hegemony of empire. And another colonial scholar, in the same breath, Prof Kgomotso Masemola says, actually, we should be reinscribing ourselves into the broad family of knowledges. And so we are trapped in that paradox, whether to de-link or to enter into that family of knowledges. That is where we are right now. Because to de-link means we have to withdraw from everything that has reinforced white privilege, dominant hegemonic thinking, and all structures that are continuing to pretend as if black excellence has to be measured only by white standards. You see by the awards of prizes that you hardly see black faces. That there is a subliminal message that's being sent to you when you are there as an academic and you see that you've taught all these students with the same resources, put in the same notional hours, and yet all your black students do not come on top of the list. It's only the white students that gain the prizes. You ask yourself, what are we doing wrong? But we're not in control of who awards the prizes and why the prizes were established, we know, of course, at least ideologically. But these are some of the conundrums that are highlighted in the book. Professor Natani reveals that her main struggle in academia was an internal one, being black and having grown up in a system that treated her with contempt and reminded her at all different levels that, quote unquote, I was not good enough. She draws her strength from, amongst others, Paulo Freire's deliberateness for liberation through the praxis of their quest for that liberation. That the main stake to be claimed is about being deliberate and decisive about your quest for liberation in higher education. It is therefore not to say that this book is a motley crowd of victims who are just crying foul about what's going on in the university. It is part of the praxis, because writing about it, recording it, actually says that you are thinking about the experience. Louis R. Gordon has actually written an essay, and that's where he departs from Grossfogel, on the black experience, that oftentimes they will want you to be pigeonholed into talking about the black experience all the time, that not stick to black things, to the black experience, so that you cannot be speaking for the entire universe. Only they have the right to speak about the universe. But yes, there is a time for us to retreat to our own games, even though we know that you can go overseas and beat them in their white games, by the time when you have to retreat and go back to your black games. This time, you have to theorize your experience, and this book theorizes so successfully the black experience in the westernized university. Narratives are legion about black women, academics, and refreshingly, we see here a recognition of the work of Retumetse Mabokela and Zina Mabubani. In one book, the black experience described primacy, and especially women academics, because we know the triple burden of race, class, and gender still runs riot and wreaks havoc in lives of black women academics. And Hugo Canham is not embarrassed to say in his essay that actually they have found men to be less threatening, but they are worried more about the women, because women have the right, on the basis of the narrative of the triple burden, to claim more than the black man can. And so the black woman academic has become the target of white supremacist structures in higher education. Belonging and unbelonging in the South African academy calls to mind the existential questions of being black in the world in the eponymous tour de force by Chabani Mangani. And as the theoretical overall of Dr. Grace Khunou shows, it also articulates the invidious position of being black in the world in forms defined by Fanon as a zone of non-being. That zone of being and non-being that is where we are, that you are actually being forced to be here. At the same time, ideologically, structurally, in terms of power relations, you are made not to be here. You are unwelcome in the university of which you are an employee. Thus, Alison Keynote referenced the experience of having to gain acceptance at university and also urged the dimension of coming out in terms of sexuality during her academic journey as she teaches jurisprudence in Northwest University. The idea of the right of the black woman to be mad and angry at the system, Professor Khunou has articulated as a form of credible epistemic disobedience. And indeed, in a university landscape that does not want to acknowledge that where we come from reflects the actual power relations of society, it is time that we actually have to reflect on our experiences and chart the paths that we want to follow, theorized properly as they have been. Indeed, experience, variegated it has been from one contributing ward to the next, will show that there have been several prejudices, and yet there have been the right questions that have been posed. And I believe, and I stand convicted, that the right theoretical tools are in place to dismantle the system. It is now a question of mounting the proper praxis. And if ever there's a formula, if ever there are signposts we have, it falls to us to glean them from this book. I encourage you to read this and share with our fellow academic students the insights that I've so neatly summarized, when in fact, there's so much more to be gleaned from this book. Having said these few words, I want to thank you for listening.